Welcome back to Grief and Motherhood, the podcast where we hold space for the ache, the anger, the healing, and the hope that comes after loss. I'm your host, Caitlin, and today's episode is a powerful one. We're stepping into a conversation that's often left unspoken, the voice and perspective of a grieving father. I'm so honored to welcome today's guest, Chris Mamome, who has bravely offered to share his story, his grief, and his perspective as a father navigating deep loss. Chris is the creator and host of the Empowered Grief Journey podcast, where he holds brave, compassionate conversations about life after loss. Through his deeply personal stories and reflective insight, he also helps others navigate the pain of grief while uncovering moments of healing, purpose, and transformation along the way. And what sets Chris apart is the way he speaks not only from lived experience, but from the heart with honesty, vulnerability, and an unwavering commitment to helping others feel seen in their grief. Chris, thank you so much for joining me today and for all the work that you're doing to normalize and empower the grief journey. I'm really excited to have you here.
Caitlin, first off, I want to say thank you for that amazing introduction and having me on your podcast today. It was a blast when I recorded with you on the Empowered Grief
Yeah.
Journey, and you're a prime example of the Empowered Grief Journey. And so I'm just excited to do this pod swap with you today.
Yeah, me too. It was such an honor to be on yours as well. Again, I think you're doing such great work. And yeah, I'm really excited for you to share your story today. So, yeah, let's just dive in. For those that may not know your story, can you share a bit about your personal journey, what you're comfortable with your grief journey, and what that looks like?
Yeah, most certainly. I grief, as one of my friends told me recently that was on my podcast, he said, grief chose you and you chose grief. And
Hmm.
it used to make me really uncomfortable to acknowledge that and understand why that all happened, but I'll share that today on today's episode.
Yeah.
My grief journey has been one very unique, but where it started was back in 2020. I watched my grandfather take his last breath from cancer after a
Mhm.
long battle with that. That was my first experience of loss. And then 2 years later, I had the very unfortunate situation of losing my son to stillbirth. His
Mhm.
heart stopped beating a day before he's supposed to be born. And that was a very soul crushing moment in my life. It's a very painful one. There's lots of moments that I can't really share with people to even to this day, but
Sure.
when I look back on that was one of the most painful chapters of my life, but it also, as I've seen today after doing a lot of healing, that my son was honestly the greatest gift that I ever got. And
Mhm.
so I have nothing but love and empathy and gratitude for his life because he sent me on a journey to coach people in the grief space and teach people how to navigate their own grief and healing journeys.
Wow. Yeah, that's so powerful. Again, I'm so sorry for your loss. Losing a child is something that is just so unfair and no parent should ever have to endure. And I know that's how you and I connected through losing our children. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. And I know he's really inspired you to do the work that you're doing now, which I think is wonderful. And again, I think we've talked about this before. I've said this, it's no journey that any of us would have ever chosen, but to have the connections and the love that we have seen in this loss community, which I know you and I have talked about before, is just unlike any other. The compassion and the love and just the caring people that you meet. So I know you are helping others heal. I know you're connecting with others, which I just think is wonderful.
I'm really glad you brought that up because one of my small stories I'll share really quickly.
Yeah.
Before I moved from New Hampshire, my wife and I got invited to a lost parent event put on by the hospital we were at and by the nurses that delivered Caden. And the whole time before going to that thing, my insides were just screaming, saying, don't go. You're not going to be able to handle that. This is going to be really
Sure.
sad, really depressing. And I wasn't alone, was in a place I couldn't even handle my own grief. And I was like, let
Mhm.
alone go into a room of 40, 50 other parents that have gone through this. That was just an emotional wave that I just was
Oh.
not sure I was going to be able to handle. And so I go to this event and I cried a lot, by the way. I'm not ashamed to
Mhm.
admit it. I cried.
No.
It was something that stuck with me at that event that one of the women there told me, and she said, we as lost parents are part of a club that we never wanted to be part of, and nobody ever should be part of. But what came out of this event was so much love and so much empathy and compassion. And
Mhm.
I talked to everybody from people that have had somewhere between 5 and 7 miscarriages. I talked to
Mhm.
people that had 2 or 3 stillbirths. This was a very eye-opening experience to me because I said I went through one, let alone watching these other people have gone through
Mhm.
what I did on a worse level than I experienced. I said, wow, that is insane.
Yeah.
But what I'll share is that in that room, there wasn't so much sadness and depression, but what I did see was people that were like rising like a phoenix out of the ashes. I saw so many people doing very powerful, very deep work in this community of lost parents. And
Mm.
it turned out to be a very beautiful day. I'll say that. I felt nothing. There was no judgment in this room. There was
Yeah.
no my story is worse than yours kind of thing. It was none of that. It
Sure.
was just I understand you, I get you, I
Mhm.
see you, I hear you, I acknowledge
Yeah.
you. The sad part too was just that there were some lost dads there like me. And us men, we didn't really talk much. That's the interesting
Mhm.
part. Because I think men don't really know how to express themselves very well. And by the way, I'm one of those people. I had to learn, and I'm still learning how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I share that really brief story to just lost my point of why I shared that, but I just want to say that I notice how men are very underserved in that moment, and
Sure.
women have a lot of resources and a lot of people to run to, but men are often forgotten in that process, and it's very sad because I saw men that honestly feel just as terrible as women going through this kind of loss. And I have a big heart out there for lost dads because I saw in the tears and the look on people's dads' faces that they care just as
Mhm.
much and they had just as big a loss. And so it's just sad that they don't have a lot of resources out there to learn how to navigate that.
Sure, absolutely. I'm really glad that you brought that up because that's something I wanted to touch on with you. I think it's so important, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on. Just coming from a dad's perspective through the eyes of a father, and just how you're trying to change that, I guess, taboo-ness that is seen where men don't have that space to grieve, if that makes sense, which I don't think is fair because, again, like you touched on, dads grieve just as much as moms, just in a different way. So I think, what has your experience been as a grieving father? And what do you think, I guess, gets overlooked when it comes to that?
I think what gets overlooked with men a lot is when men are raised, funny story, we're taught to not show emotion, taught
Hmm.
to yeah, a lot of phrases I've been told over the years, honestly, is suck it up, tough it up.
Oh,
You can figure it out. You'll be fine. I've heard that. I've heard you got to let it go. You got to move on. Life is still happening. Um, I always went through grief with that my whole life, and I never really understood it. But what was really
sure.
happening is that you're suppressing and burying all this emotion down, and it's gonna come up one day. It may not be in the right moment, by the way. It'll come up when it
Hmm.
feels like it. I learned when I lost my son, that one shook me to the core. That was the one
Sure.
that I couldn't let go. I honestly
Hmm.
couldn't. I'll share with listeners, I lost my job 3 months before losing him. My wife and I were both verbally and emotionally abused by our family the whole time we were pregnant. That was not a good chapter of life. And my one thing clung hope to, and I said, if anything can go, it would be having a kid because that's the
Oh,
one thing I can't screw up. That's the one
hmm.
thing that I won't, pardon my French, half-ass in my life. That's the thing I'll
Sure.
give 150% to, even if it breaks me, I'll do it. So losing him was very soul crushing when that
Oh,
happened. It's like somebody just ripped it out of me. But you know that I share this story to say that as a man, you're taught not to have feelings and emotions. And the sad part is I've talked to a lot of dads in the lost community. They have emotions. They feel
mhm.
sadness. They feel hurt. They feel lost. They feel scared. They feel confused. They feel, what's my purpose? Why am I going forward? And that's very normal when you lose a child. Very
Oh,
normal. Um,
absolutely. Yes.
and the thing that I'm trying to break right now, actually, in the grief community is that got brought up on another podcast I was a guest on, and we were talking about emotions. And I said, everybody says women are overly emotional. I see it differently. I say women are taught how to feel emotion and how to
Hmm.
express emotions. Men are taught suck it up, tough it up, or just don't talk about it, hide it. And so we're not taught anything in between those. We know anger really well too. Men know anger well, but it's because anger is a cover up for how we actually feel. And
Wow,
so
that's yeah.
I'm trying to teach men that anger is the part of you that loves you the most. And I know Mr. Tough Guy loves to come out, but sometimes you need to get honest with yourself and say, you know what? I'm hurt today. I'm sad today. I miss my
Yeah,
kid. Say those things. It's not, it doesn't
absolutely.
mean Doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're
No.
vulnerable or you got a problem. It doesn't mean those things. It means you're a human. You feel things.
Wow. Yes, I love
So
that. Thank you for sharing that because my hope is to again, like what you're doing, just break that taboo subject where men shouldn't have feelings. I know we talked about this a little bit when I was on your podcast, but I have boys and I'm raising them to have those emotions and to feel them and to cry when they want to because again, they're human. And just because they're boys doesn't mean that they shouldn't be allowed to feel and to cry and to have those emotions, which they do, by the way. My 7-year-old is very emotional. He cries a lot, which I'm glad because
good.
he has a tender heart, and I want him one day to be able to show his partner or spouse the emotions and the love and not shut down. So, I'm so happy that you're connecting with men and dads and just helping with that. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a very underserved thing because when I went through losing Caden, my wife had tons of support, lots of it. She
Sure.
had
Yeah.
friends, she had hospitals, that the nurses we had were phenomenal. I swear to this day, those were angels sent by God because I have
Yeah.
no other way to express how compassionate and loving those women were to my wife.
Oh,
It
that's
was a
so great.
gift from God is really what that was.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that because I've heard the opposite also. I've heard good things, bad things when it comes to hospital care, but I had a similar, very wonderful experience. I can't imagine being a bereavement nurse. I think that would be a really tough job, but it's a beautiful job also, getting to just connect with the women and take care of their babies and because they're still your babies and you
Yeah,
want
they
somebody to care.
There was this little nurse, Jessica. I've never forgotten her. She was probably not
Mhm.
more than 5'1", 5'2". She was very short. And they were wearing like the mask and the head thing because of COVID and
Sure.
all that stuff. And I was bothered by that because I wanted to see their faces because
Mhm.
the amount of empathy and love they shared
Mhm.
and these are complete strangers, by the way. I don't even know them very
Right.
well.
Yeah.
And what they showed was a lot of family is what they
Mhm.
showed. And I remember like shortly after he was born, I was like crying my eyes out, couldn't even see straight kind of thing.
Mhm.
And anyway, little Jessica, I have to share this because she's awesome, little awesome woman.
Yeah.
She said, I know this is a very tense moment right now, but your kid has the freaking cutest nose ever. And it
Oh,
just brought this lightness into a very dark moment. And
yes.
I couldn't even wrap the kid. Funny story. Showed me how to do it 3 times that whole 24 hours I was with.
Mm,
But the amount of love they showed for Caden was unsurmountable. I just was so
yeah.
grateful for that. But coming back to men and fathers that go
Mhm.
through this, it is very isolating because resources aren't there. They're just
Yeah,
not.
I agree.
And and I think as a father, what's really hard, what I'll share, and most of us grieving fathers that have lost a child will say this, we had to watch our wife go through it. And so
Mhm.
we not only have to be there for our spouse and be their emotional support, their physical, mental support. We've got to give a lot in that direction. And then on top of that, we're dealing with family or friends at that point. We're
Yeah.
dealing with, I had to deal with funeral arrangements. That was
Oh,
brutal. I'll say
oh
that.
no. Yeah.
But then at the end of the day, you almost forget about yourself sometimes because what I watched my wife go through, and I still can't even talk about it because it hurts so much. But
Sure.
I had to be there for her 100%, and so I didn't have a lot of time to really think about my grief or what I wanted to deal with it or going to find somebody to work through it. So I dealt with my journey very isolated, and I can share with a lot of lost parents and lost dads out there. Please, by all means, try to find someone. I don't even care if it's one person.
Yeah.
I'll go that far to say that find one person that somebody can hold space for you and just let you be the way you need to be.
Yeah.
It's why I do what I do, and you saw that on my podcast. I hold
Mhm.
space. I call the Zoom room you guys see the holding space, and this is a
Yeah.
judgment-free zone on my show, and I let people grieve the way they need to grieve. I don't care if they need to cuss and scream or if they just say, "I'm just really hurt and sad today." I don't care how it comes out, but I never
Yeah.
got that, and I want to give other people that space because that would have made the difference with me.
Sure.
Just that one little thing.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. I keep saying that, but really, truly, I think what you're doing is wonderful. Going back to your Empowered Grief Journey podcast, I know Hayden kind of led you to start that. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up because I'll share with you guys the path my child put me on.
Yeah.
I did a medium reading on Saturday and he came
Yeah.
through in a very big way. For those of you guys not believers in medium, I will say that it is real. I
Yeah.
had some deep experiences on Saturday through Caden's voice. And
Well,
so back December this year, or sorry, December last year, I
mhm.
started getting on podcasts and I did about somewhere between 10 and 15 of those between December and January. And I started getting his story out there because for me, talking about Caden, it lights me up. It makes me
Yeah.
happy. I'm
You can tell.
crazy
I
like
mean,
that. Um,
no, I think it's great. It just side note, it's funny because that's why I started my podcast because talking
mm,
about my girls just it brings me a sense of peace. And if I can get my story out to just help, like you said, one person, I can connect with somebody that it's gonna let them know that they're not alone. Just yes, I so agree with you. So
I love that.
continue. Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're fine. No apologies here. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. So, what ate me alive in my grief journey, which I started to learn, was that if I don't ever get to talk about him or share
Hmm.
his story or share what he's guiding me on, it's a very isolating, scary world for me.
Mm,
It makes me very depressed and in a very dark place.
sure.
I got on a podcast and I was nervous to talk about stillbirth because it makes a lot of people, in my
Hmm.
experience, very uncomfortable and they're, "Ugh, I don't want to talk about that or know
Yeah.
about that." And it's sad because I consider I don't care if it's 5 weeks old or 35 weeks old. I don't
Sure.
care. That's a life in my book.
Exactly.
That's my
100%.
belief.
Yep.
But so I always say that I got on these podcasts and these people appreciated my story. It was very weird. I spent most of my life, by the way, with people not liking who I am and telling me how to be and think and feel. I had a very rough early 30 years of my life and go on these podcasts and these people supported me and they said, "What a beautiful story you have." And I love that you
Mhm.
shared that. And I was going, feel heard for the first time. I'm feeling
Mhm.
seen. I said, "This is weird. It's the one thing I've wanted in my life that I've never gotten." And I know I started sitting there going, Caden put me on this path. I didn't choose this. And so, long story short, there were three people. I don't remember who they were, by the way, because I've done so many podcasts, but
Sure.
they they literally told me, I said, you need to start your own podcast. And I said, I don't even know a thing about that at
Mhm.
all. And they said, we'll help you with that. So I got some
Oh.
guidance from a few people that took compassion on my doorstep. And I'm
Mm.
very grateful to them, by the way, because I'm 60 episodes deep in a podcast and
Yes.
I've had people tell me that I have a very big gift for holding space for people. And I have this real knack of drawing out the authentic grief out of people and getting them to meet themselves where they need to be met. And these were things I didn't see in myself, by the way, to be very honest. I didn't see this. This is all stuff I've heard from people going through my podcast. And I just have this big driver inside me now. Caden's the one pushing me in this direction, by the way. That came through in the
Yes.
mediumship. When I look back, and it's why I call my son just the biggest gift I ever got. And
Mhm.
yes, he's not here physically, and
Sure.
that hurts. But he gave me such a beautiful gift, which was to go out there and change the way the
Mm.
world sees grief and experiences it. Because I'm not the same person I was before he came into my world. I'm not even close to that person. That version of me doesn't exist. But this new
Sure.
version of me is an empathetic, kind, loving soul that wants to help change the world and how people see grief. And had Caden not come in the world the way he did, had he not put me on this mission, I wouldn't even be here
Mm.
talking to you today. And nothing but gratitude for this little child. He changed my life.
I know it's incredible and beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time because you want them here with you, but they've also given you a whole new life. I completely get it. I'm gonna I'm gonna pause because I have a tickle in my throat. I
No
cannot get rid
worries.
of it.
Chris.
It just came out of nowhere too. I'm like, what? I can obviously
It's
edit
all
this
good.
part out. Yeah.
No worries. I always have to drink
I'm like,
water
what
when
the
I'm
heck?
on
Oh, I
podcasts
do
because my
too.
throat gets dry.
Yes. I'm like, what in the world, Caitlin? What is happening? I think I started getting choked up because it really is like just thinking about how our babies were so close to being one day. I was 2 weeks away from meeting Lee. Just it's just so hard to and I feel like grief, let's talk about grief for a minute because I feel like you are like what you said, people have said about you, I completely agree with. You you can just tell that you are so caring and empathetic. Just you just have knowledge and just understanding. And unfortunately, it's because you've been through it, but it's also a beautiful gift. So grief, man, some days it just hits you out of nowhere. When I think people have this, I guess if you don't really know grief, you don't really fully understand it. That's where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Something that I've shared before is my husband and I did go on, and we have an 8-month-old son now, born after our losses. And I still talk about Lainey. She's my daughter. She should be here. She should be, let's see, August or I'm sorry, no, August she would be 2, which is crazy. But people think that I shouldn't be grieving her anymore because I have another baby. And I'm like, first of all, my son doesn't replace my daughter. No baby replaces another. But then it's not something you get over. And that's where I'm want to talk to you about a little bit how people think you're just supposed to get over it. Grief is a lifelong journey. It's something that you don't ever get over. So what is your I know you said you had unfortunately some bad treatment. What is something that you would share with other lost parents about, I guess, not listening to what the stigma, that what people say, the negative, that type of thing?
I've had quite a few of those circumstances that I've had
Yeah.
people say it had happened. You got to move on with life.
Mm,
You can't stay in your grief. I disagree with that so much. It's not funny.
yes.
Grief, when you lose a child, it's very hard. I'll share that. And I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but if you've not lost a child in your life, I'm gonna
Mhm.
tell you right now, it is gonna be really hard for you to even come close to relating what that pain is.
Absolutely.
I watched my grandfather die from cancer. I had 33 years with that man. I have so many memories. I have so many good things to look back on. I had less than 24 hours with my kid,
Mm,
and that 24 hours flew by so fast it wasn't funny. And I was very grateful that the hospital paid for a photographer, so I have a whole set of photos to watch and look at him. I also will share with you guys on his birthday. I make a point that's his day. I don't care what's going on in the world. Doesn't matter to me. It's Caden's day.
yes.
And I celebrate him on his birthday. And my wife and I, ever since he passed, we make outlandish, ridiculous cakes on his birthday.
Oh,
I'm
I
happy to
love
share with
that. Yeah.
yeah, we last year's was a triple decker cake, triple like it was stacked or whatever. And so Caden's thing is a lion, that's his image of things. And so we have a whole safari set of miniature lions, like
Oh,
a father, mother lion with a baby lion for the cake. And
that's so cool.
we put a number on there. We look at pictures of him. It's a big day of reflection. It's a very hard day, by the way. I don't want to tell people that I'm making cakes and yay, life is good.
Sure.
It's
No.
not that.
Yeah,
And so it's to talk about him and how he's affected our lives. And I really
absolutely.
think it's important for if you are a lost parent, by the way, I want you guys to know that is completely normal to celebrate your child. I don't care that they're not here. I don't care if
Mhm.
that doesn't make sense to anybody around you. You need to celebrate and honor your child in your life. I have a big bookcase with all his memorabilia on it. A lot of those things are gifts that we got from people that sent us things after we lost him. It was really sad last week, by the way. This lady got us a glass square, if you will, like a glass brick or whatever, and
Yeah,
you can put like a light into it. I'm bad at describing things, but
that's okay.
she had a picture of Caden put on the glass. So when you put
Oh,
this light bulb in there, and I don't think she planned for this, by the way, but the light hits right where his heart is on the picture.
oh, how
Um,
precious. Yeah.
but she was fighting cancer for a while. She just passed away last week, and that was really sad because she was one person that stepped up a lot for my wife in that moment to help her out.
Sure.
But grief I'll share with child loss because that's been the hardest one I've gone through. It does not go away. I don't care how
Mhm.
strong you are or how strong you think you are, it doesn't go away. I still have days. I particularly don't like my birthday, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I don't like those holidays anymore
Sure.
because I don't feel happiness celebrating them. And the hard part is When I go into the store after Thanksgiving, I almost have anxiety or a panic attack when I go into a store and hear Christmas music.
Mm,
I have a lot of rage that comes up really quick, and I just got to leave the store. And I know my grief enough that
right.
what that feeling is, it's a lot of love for him. And
Sure.
what people don't know about us lost parents, by the way, is we have constant triggers around us all the time. And so,
Yes.
like a little kid bumps into my leg in the store, I don't get mad about that like I used to. I actually sit there and say, that could be my kid. And so when I hear
Yes.
other parents say, stop that or don't do that, or I'm sitting there going, don't yell at your kid because I don't have mine. Enjoy that
Yeah.
while you got it.
Yeah.
That's what comes through a lot. And
Sure.
so what I want to share about grief is that it's not something to be fixed. It's not something to be solved. It's something that's going to be with you the whole life. And as a lost parent, I'm going to share it feels like punishment a lot. It really does.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's coming up on 3 years for me. And I sit there and say, I should have a 3-year-old wearing
Hmm.
me out every day right now. And I would trade anything in the world for that. I went to the beach earlier this year. There's a big jetty out where I live, and it was really stormy that day, big waves. I just walked over to the other side of the jetty where the waves were crashing, and people were looking at me like, you're crazy. You're going to get hit by one of those. And I said, I'm not scared.
Yeah.
And what was going through my mind every time a wave came by, and they were 15 feet tall, they were big, and they crashed right in front of my feet. And I wasn't scared, but what it was very reminding me of is that my grief I need to pay attention to. My grief
Sure.
is a friend, it's not an enemy. And so I realized every time one of those waves hit, I said, when grief comes like that, I can stand tall through that moment. I don't have to bend, I don't have to cower. I can stand there and I can take it. I can. And that's my
Wow.
grief telling me that I tell men all the time, your anger is the part of you that loves you the most. And if you listen to it, it will
Yeah.
share a powerful message for you. So
Wow. That's really powerful, Chris. Thank you for sharing that. You have some really great words. So I
thank you.
appreciate you sharing. Again, I feel like it's a gift that you've been given. Obviously, I know you would give anything to have Caden here, but I think taking that pain and making it into a purpose, I think it's beautiful. So if people want to connect with you, I will obviously I'll share your links and all of your info in my show notes today. And is there anything you would like to tell them about finding you or connecting with you?
I before I do that, I just want to add a really quick little thing.
Oh,
If
absolutely.
if you're a lost parent right now, going through the loss of a child, and I don't care if that just happened to you last week or it's been
Hmm.
5 years, whatever it is, I want you to know that that journey is yours to define, nobody else's. And I want you to know that moment, by the way, has a lot of gifts, lessons, and blessings for you. And even in that darkness, there's light to share, and you have a beautiful gift yourself that you can go out into the world and even do what I'm doing or in your own way, whatever that may be. But I want you to go out there and serve other people through that gift and honor your child because that's the biggest gift that this world needs is people to do that. So our children don't have to pass and they don't have to pass in a bad way and have it be this thing that drags us down. Celebrate their life and celebrate them by going out there and contributing good in the world. I just want to encourage everybody to do that.
I love that.
That back to Caitlin's question, if you guys
Sure.
want to connect with me, I'm on Facebook. I'm very active there. I've got hundreds of followers on there, and I've got a lot of people like Caitlin that have been on my podcast that I stay connected with. I encourage you guys to jump on and connect with me. I'll tell you, I'm a very open book, as you guys have noticed on today's
Mhm.
podcast, and I don't say any questions are off limits. And if you guys are going through grief for whatever reason and you feel like you need somebody to talk to, I do offer free empowerment calls for an hour with anybody who needs a safe space to be held and talk and just express yourself as you need to without judgment. And I hope you guys that are going through some grief right now, especially lost dads in particular, this is not the place to man up. This is the place to say, I need to get in touch with myself. It's okay. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. Um,
Yes.
take advantage of those resources because I want you
Yeah.
guys to find your gift. Like I said, and I want you to go out in the world with whatever that may be and contribute some good. So you guys can find me on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok. I make a lot of reels about grief and how to navigate that. You guys can also go to my website, empoweredgriefjourney.com, and you guys can find my podcast there and you can find out a little bit more about me.
That's great. Yeah, I will highly encourage people to go connect with Chris because he's a wonderful human, as you can tell, a lot of empathy. And I feel like if you are on a grief journey, especially as a dad, he can definitely give you that space to talk through your grief and heal. And yeah, I just think wonderful what you're doing.
Well,
Before
thank
we
you.
jump off here, I do have one last question. I just, maybe for our listeners, one more piece of advice. What would you say to someone who feels stuck in their grief right now? Someone who can't imagine feeling whole again?
The one thing I'm going to share with you about being stuck in grief, and I was stuck for a very long time after losing Caden. I
Mm,
want you to know that place you're in is helpful. It is not hurtful.
mm,
That's very contrary to what you're going to hear from most people. That is the place you're going to find yourself. That is the place that you're going to heal. And what I would encourage you to do if you do feel stuck in grief, by the way, I want you to go take a trip somewhere, jump in the car and go to the beach, go to the mountains, go somewhere that can bring you a new environment that makes you happy. The reason I say this is because in your environment you're in all the time, it's going to be very hard to get out of that. And I'm only speaking from personal experience. Go to the mountains, go to the beach, and just sit and be with yourself. And I want you to know that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel the way you feel. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. I want to be really clear about that. You're trying to navigate your own grief journey, and you do that at your own pace. Nobody gets to dictate how you do that. But I would encourage you to change your environment a little bit with that, and I would take a pen and paper and write down how you feel and use the statements I feel, not I am. You're not your
oh,
emotions, but I want you to write down I feel this way and get those thoughts out so you can start processing this thing together. Because I want to encourage you guys, by the way, this Empower Grief Journey is not the Chris Mamone show. That's your show. I'm just helping
I
you
love
to get
that.
there. Um,
Yes.
and your empowered grief journey is yours to decide. So go tackle that thing because I know you can. If you feel stuck, by the way, you just have a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings you're trying to process, and you may not
Mhm.
be in an environment or around people that are allowing you to do it. So I want to give you your power back to go take charge of that because this is your journey. And you got me. If you don't have anybody else around you, by the way, you got me and Caitlin on this podcast.
Yes.
So I'm going to implore you and push you because you've got a gift to go give the world, and I want you to find it out sooner than later because this world needs you. So I'm
Oh,
going to leave you guys with that.
that's great. I love that, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate having you on today, and I'm excited for what's ahead for you.
Thank you, Caitlin. This has been a real honor to be on your podcast today. And thank you so much for giving space to a grieving father to go help other
Yes.
grieving fathers.
Thank you. Absolutely. That is a wrap on today's episode. If this resonated with you, feel free to reach out to Chris. I know he can be a great help for you and give you that space you need. And also can share. And until next time,